So, Rob, welcome to the Crypto Princess channel. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So, Rob, just before we get into your crypto story, tell me if I was to meet you at school, what kind of person were you in high school?
Oh, in school? Well, I was very outgoing for sure. I was also a homecoming king in my school here.
Wow.
So that was at the time one of my greatest achievements, right? I still joke about it all the time on the show. We talk about making big trades and portfolios and all these big accomplishments, and I always jokingly revert to one of my greatest accomplishments was winning homecoming king for my high school out in Virginia. And so I was definitely the social person. I was the one that would have parties and have people over, and yeah, that was me in high school. I guess I was the guy to hang out with, but also that also diverted me from my own personal goals. I did at the time when I was younger really find satisfaction in people's company and feeling popular. I guess it would be a good term. All the while, those things realistically didn't lead to personal development and career goals. And so, on one end, it was great to be, the center of attention, but at the same time, when I didn't put my own personal self at the center of attention, that hampered my growth. And so I learned through stagnation and disappointment because I had my priorities mixed up that later on in life, I was like, man, I wasted so much time trying to get validation from other people that now I realize that I'm behind in my career, behind in my finances, I'm behind in my growth, my name. And so I made me work that much harder to catch up and to get back on par with people that had been already working, grinding, going to school, developing portfolios, saving and investing in new tech industries. And that was something I jumped into way late, like way in my 30s. And so for me, it was like a crash course to like, fuck, man, I wasted so much time trying to like appease other people, and I didn't try to appease myself. And so that was my big takeaway from kind of growing up. And if you would have hung out with me, it would have been a good time, but it would definitely wouldn't recommend hanging out with me because there's a lot of drinking and partying and idiocracies as well.
Okay, awesome. So, from my understanding, you got into crypto sometime in 2016/2017. So, since leaving high school and 2016, what were you doing in between?
Well, I was chasing one career path after another, but they all pretty much circled around the restaurant industry. So I went when I was about 21 years old. I went to culinary school, moved out to Las Vegas. So I went to culinary school. I had some in and out jobs before that and retail and I did sell suits for a while. So I was the guy that put together outfits for businessmen, shirts, ties, and, dress color alterations, tailoring, things like that. But I fell into the restaurant industry, and then I was working at it and I was pretty good at it. And so I was a management of like some smaller chain restaurants here in Virginia, where I grew up. But I wanted to maximize my potential. And so I went to culinary school, moved out to Las Vegas, and have been here ever since. So I went to culinary school, graduated. And then I proceeded to work on the Las Vegas Strip at some of the biggest names restaurants. And so I worked for Tom Colicchio. I worked for Gordon Ramsay. I was a sous chef for Gordon Ramsay and Guy Savoy, which he has a restaurant here in Las Vegas, which is a 2-star Michelin. So I was a sous chef there as well. And so I did that for a while. I also found passion in wine. And so on the wine side, which is closely tied in with the culinary side of the restaurant. A lot of times, especially in the fine dining side, you put together food, and then at the same time, you work with what's called the sommeliers, which are the wine stewards, the professionals on the wine side. And so I went down a path of educating and learning more about wine and getting the professional accreditations of being a sommelier. So I did those studies for about 3 or 4 years, became a sommelier, practiced that as well. So I transitioned from the kitchen to a sommelier. And then I worked back at Gordon Ramsay again in the front of house sommelier role as well. And I did that. And, there's which is funny because wine has a lot of wine and crypto education have a lot of parallels, right? There's a lot of boring, mundane details in crypto. And there's also a bunch of boring, mundane details on wine as well. So with crypto, it's all about blockchain, TPS, TVL, and all the inner workings. So to have a proper grasp of what has value, what will have value, what has the potential to front run other cryptos or competitors in our space, a lot of it comes to knowing the little nuances, to know the development team and who's the big names. You look at wine and it's very similar. I think that's why it was a good transition for me, is because you need to know the terroir, or where the grapes are grown, the wine producers, who's the winemaker, who's the house, who's the family, what's the style of this winemaker, why are the wines from this region vastly different than another. And so that education part that I had for wine transitioned over to crypto pretty well. There's a lot of behind the scenes things. And at the end of the day, when you're talking about crypto, you don't need to list all of the little tiny details behind a blockchain in the same way that if someone's looking to buy a bottle of wine, you don't need to say, hey, look, there's the earth, the soil breakdown here is schist at 70%, 20% clay, 5% gravel. Nobody cares. They just want to know, am I going to like this wine? And same with crypto. It's like, nobody really cares. Like, am I going to make money on this thing? And so from an educational perspective, I could deduce which ones had value in the same way I could deduce what wines had value and what best suited a customer or guest for a certain style of wine to compare with their dinner versus, hey, what's a good crypto for this style of portfolio, or with the market, or what's the trends? Like, I can tell you there's trends in wine as well. Right now, California-based wines, Cabernet full body, are very popular. It's a crowd pleaser. And in crypto, that Cardano and Solana are the crowd pleasers and very trendy, but that's not gonna be there forever, right? Or maybe Cabernet has been around forever, or maybe that's the Bitcoin, So for me, that was an interesting parallel. And then, so from a professional standpoint, that's been pretty much my upbringing. I got a massive amount of hobbies as well, carpentry and, landscaping, gardening, things of that nature. I like to build. I'm like a weird Lego guy. I got like a big Lego city back here. And I got a bird too. I don't think you can hear him because I've clipped him out with my audio settings, but I got a bird too. That's my buddy, but it kind of sums me up.
Like a parrot?
Yeah, he's a little Quaker parrot, a little green guy. He's
one of those like small ones.
He's about this big. I could get him. Maybe at the end of the show, I'll go grab him. But he's like my best friend. He's my buddy. I also got a dog here too, honey. She's old. She can barely even hear me. She's right. Oh, there she is. Honey dog. Yeah, it's a little Chihuahua wiener dog. I rescued her like 13 years ago, so I don't know how old she is, but she's old. She's getting there.
Okay, bless. Okay, so that's taken us up to 2016. Now, you got into crypto in 2016. 2016 was very early. Bitcoin was about 7 years old, and it was going to. It already had one bull run. 2017 was going to be its second bull run, so it was on the cusp of its second bull run. The price of Bitcoin was between $400 to $1,000. So you could have bought quite a bit of Bitcoin then as well. At the time, I think we had, there was quite a lot of altcoins floating around as well. How did you get into cryptocurrency and what was your first experience like?
So my first exposure to it, I'd loosely seen it on broadcast television, so Fox News or CNBC. I'm not sure which publication it was, but had popped up a couple times, and I was always kind of fascinated with emerging technologies. So I know they had the Liberty coin was the first like big name or the first real effort before Bitcoin. And if you do research on blockchain and digital currencies, there was, I think, almost like 50 to 100 different attempts. Some of them were just launched and just never took off at all. But there were some valid attempts, and it wasn't like Satoshi came up with a novel idea that nobody had ever thought of. Realistically, the idea was there, just the implementation of the double spend was the big problem that could not be remedied, right? And so how to create a decentralized currency where there was just no double spend. Basically, you couldn't enrich yourself in any way with an exploit. And that's realistically just all about security, right? And so up until that point, it had never been created. But so I'd always kept a fascinating eye on the industry. And and it probably was because of the failures of the previous digital currencies, because a lot of people said, well, I first heard about Bitcoin and it was 2010. But at the same time, I had first heard about Liberty Coin and other coins right around that time too. So in the same way that some people kick themselves in the butt for missing the layer one or the meme coin, at the same time, I'm sure that's not the only one. It's not, you could be upset because you missed out on Shiba Inu, but at the same time, Shiba Inu came out, so did 10,000 other meme coins. And so you can sit here and say in hindsight, like, wow, I should have known, I heard about it, but I ignored it. And so for me, I don't look at missing on Bitcoin in the early days as being ignorant. I just had to overload, and there were different opportunities that had already presented itself. It didn't materialize, but Bitcoin did. And, it's very fortunate. I think Bitcoin came out at the right time. And so for me, when I first heard about it, I can't nail the date down, but I can tell you the first time it really caught my attention, and it was a coworker. I was in the restaurant, and he was basically saying, it was 2016, guys, you have to buy this. This was the early part of 2016, and maybe it was 2015, but I'm pretty sure it's 2016 because I didn't buy too long after that. And he was like, you got to buy this. It's going to be the future. You know how it is when someone that's very passionate about Bitcoin starts talking about it, as someone that has zero exposure to it, you're trying to convince them, and you can see that they're receptive but a little doubtful. So then at this point, you're like, all right, I got your attention, let me try to convince you. And so that's what he did. At the time, he walked away, and then I looked at my coworker and laughed at him. But it was only within the next 3 to 6 months I saw the price of Bitcoin, because now you mentioned it, it got my attention, and so I saw the price accumulate during that short window that he talked to me. I'm like, damn. I'm over here laughing about this guy, and it went from at the time it was less than $1,000. I can't nail the price, but maybe it was like $300 or $400, and then by the end of 2016, it had like doubled, I believe, and so it was like 3 or 6 months it had doubled, and it caught my attention. I was like, holy crap! I'm like, yeah, it already doubled. And then once again, now we work in the same place. I go up to him. I'm like, hey, kind of spot on about that Bitcoin thing. And I was like, how do I get it? But instead of him telling me to go download an app like you do nowadays, there was an ATM down the street over here down on Fremont, next to the steakhouse. And so we just go in there and put $100 and then print out a little receipt with the address, seed phrase. And then that was my first exposure. But then I ended up selling once it did like 3x or something of that nature. I don't remember. I just spent it on something stupid. I think I was also as a chef, chefs don't really make a lot of money. And also, so I was not in a financial position where I was putting away for retirement or I had this disposable income at the time. I'm, early 30s and I have a profession that barely makes ends meet. And I got excited and made some profit. And so from that point, I realized, especially when the market kind of started to tank afterwards, that I had rode a wave up, exited. And so I guess it's better than some people kind of round tripping and going down through the bear market. But if I'd have just kept my original Bitcoin at the price I bought, it was like $600, I think. If I'd have kept that Bitcoin, obviously knowing the price now, that would have been the best thing. But
so your first exposure to Bitcoin was in 2016. Now in 2017, Bitcoin exploded. It exploded. It went from $1,000 to $20,000.
I didn't make it to 20,000. I sold in early 2017. So I bought it sub $1,000. So I don't remember my exact buy. And, I tried to I could find my transactions. I could come back on the show and give you the exact price, but it was probably $700 or $800, I would assume. And then I probably sold it like 1,900 or 2,000, something like that. Somewhere there. I didn't hold it for long. It wasn't long at all. I think it might have been like 4 or 5 months. And then I did buy more, and then I was like, try to do it again. And then I kind of got spooked and I sold it, and I sold for a loss, and I made some money. So I kind of dabbled in and out, but, yeah, it was just, just new to the game. And so just inexperience, and kind of, you get that little euphoria when you get a 2x out of Bitcoin, or, a 3x, or maybe close to 3x. I don't think I quite made a 3x on Bitcoin at any point in time, but definitely got a doubled up my money. And for me at the time, that was pretty big. Hey, I had $1,000 and, turned it into 2,000. And so in my current salary at that time, it was quite substantial. My paychecks as a chef were about $500 a week. And so, making $1,000 in every 2 weeks on a 50-hour work week, making $1,000 of profit from crypto was big for me. That was huge. And that was, it helped out a lot. And so for me, like I said, I wasn't in a position to put away for retirement. I didn't have that disposable income. So my intention on putting into crypto was completely different than it is now, right?
Okay. So after 2017, we entered a bear market. At the time, were you aware of the difference between a bull market and a bear market? And what did you do in 2018?
I had zero idea what was happening. And the narrative was that crypto was a scam, was a fraud. All these people got fished, and everyone lost their money, and Bitcoin's going to go to zero. And so at the time, I foolishly just kind of rode along with that, and I initially dismissed it. So, say in the early part of 2018, I was like, you know what, I'm out. I didn't really pay much attention to it. And then, just slowly started kind of looking back into it. And I was like, you know what, it's not going. And then a lot of it was, everyone was talking about Bitcoin was going to zero and Bitcoin was dead. And then even in 2018, it just never got back to the prices I was at. Cause I think a part of me was also like, all right, well, if it's dead or it's dying, maybe I'll buy some more when it gets under $1,000. And well, obviously that never happened. And so it still retained value, even though it didn't, even though I assumed that it was quote unquote dead or not a thing, I was still like, well, shoot, I bought it under $1,000. It ran up to, I think it was like 19,000 back in 2017, somewhere around there. And then at that time I had zero exposure to it. And then I was kind of kicking myself in the butt when it was at 20 grand, and then it started crashing. And then at first I was like, all right, maybe I'll buy it. I just didn't. And then I think it went down to about 6,000, somewhere in there. And it held for quite some time. And then I think it started to drop again. It got under 5,000, maybe 4, 3, something there. And then after that, I was expecting it to keep dropping, and it didn't. And then it started to bounce back. And then that's kind of when I realized, I'm like, you know what? I don't think it's going to go to zero, and I don't think it'll be under $1,000. And I think that this $3,000 might be kind of the bottom. And then I got interested in altcoins, and, I got started buying some altcoins. I was buying kind of the stuff at the time that was popular, like Dash and Monero. And I did get a little bit of Ethereum and XRP, but XRP didn't really take off because of the SEC lawsuit. Monero and Dash didn't do too well. Ethereum did extremely well. That was one of the biggest portfolio wins there. I got exposure to Cardano, but it was a little later. It wasn't until like early 2021, under 5 cents, which that was a big win still. So yeah, that was when I started. And then these started to move early. They didn't go explosive and parabolic till 2021, but they started to kind of create value. You could see that, hey, and foolishly, I didn't get a big exposure to Bitcoin, which is in hindsight. I'd bought Bitcoin in the beginning, and I'm just like, I got back in and kind of ignored Bitcoin, and I don't know. It's just inexperience, and I guess it's all part of the learning curve. So that kind of sums up up till 2020.
Okay, we're just going to touch upon 2020, but before we do that, at this time, who was helping you?
Oh, it was just me. You know what? It's just me. At this point, I was on exchanges. Binance.us was a thing. That was more 2022 or 2021. It was Coinbase. And that was when I was educating myself through YouTube. And because if you wanted to learn how to operate in crypto, you wanted to learn how to, what to do, there really wasn't much information outside of YouTube. And so for me, I was leveraging crypto versus people, right? And I was in an environment where, I had left that job where the coworker was trying to, pitch me on Bitcoin. And I left that job, and there was no other crypto people in any of my other employment positions anywhere. And so at this point, I'm just like, So then talk about it at work. Nobody in my family owned crypto, none of my friends. And then at this point, I started to kind of focus on myself. And so I really wasn't going out and hanging out with people. And so I think this was kind of that transition in my own personal life where I was focusing on myself, and, I hung out and went to the bar and, just didn't take life seriously for so long. And I just needed the validation of other people. So at this point in time, I kind of like hermit crab myself. And then I started to, it wasn't just crypto either. It was, like I mentioned, I was working on like doing upholstery and furniture, carpentry. I really worked on my own home, renovated things, worked on, gardening. So there's a lot of different things that consume my time. But at the end of the day, all of this, everything that I learned how to do, I started to learn how to do through YouTube. And so this point in time around 2018 was the transformation of, irresponsible, have fun, culinary chef, and wine. And at this point, I was like, all right. And I kind of cut out the nonsense, and I started figuring out like what makes me happy. Where have I had successes? And so that was the big turning point for my build up on myself. So for crypto, I did it exactly like I do for everything else. I want to learn how to reupholster a chair. I watched 10 videos on it. I want to learn how to onboard and offboard and on crypto. I did it through YouTube. What is this smart contract? I'm now hearing about that. What is that? And then my brain starts to elaborate and starts to imagine, and I start to see the value in it, through what other people are saying. And so all of that came from YouTube. And so I've ever since then have created my own like research kind of mentality. And once again, it came off of the back of being a sommelier. And a lot of that was because, in culinary school, you go to a school and you learn under a teacher and they show you how to do it. And wine, they say, exam on this date, be ready. And so you have to learn it all yourself. And so you have to go pick up the bottles and taste the wine and do this. And so my education has completely switched. And so, yeah, it was just a lone wolf out there. I will say though, the last restaurant I worked at, David worked there. And then I had a different, this is fast forward. We started working in 2018. We didn't even mention crypto until 2020, when the COVID thing happened. I didn't even know he had exposure. And also I wasn't heavy buying. I was buying, but I wasn't like, setting aside big chunk buys yet. And so once COVID happened, I think everything accelerated. People are making money. That time I had disposable income. So I was layering tons of buys there right at the right time. And David was there along for the ride. And then we ended up being the two crypto guys at our restaurant. And so we were the ones, we had a group chat and everyone wanted to know what to buy. And everyone kept coming up to us. And they were like, buy this one. And at the time, crypto, everything was going up. Everyone was winning and all the altcoins. And so you couldn't really get it wrong. So a lot of times we were just like, yeah, buy this one. And then somebody would make, a couple $1,000 and like, bro, like I talked to David and Robin and they told me to buy this one. And now, I turned 2,000 and 5,000 or 2,000 and 10,000. And so there was a lot of that. So, that little free for knowledge in that little restaurant group that we were in, they all kept approaching us, more and more people started making money. And then I had already started my education kind of perspective through YouTube. So I knew the value of it. I'm a big tech guy. And then, so that's when the big switch happened from restaurant to educator.
Okay, awesome. Let's talk about 2021. Let's talk about 2020. So 2020, as you mentioned, was a very difficult time. COVID hit. A lot of places were in lockdown. I suppose your restaurant probably had closed down for a while as well.
Mm-hmm.
People were dying everywhere. People had lost their jobs. Businesses had closed down. It wasn't a good year for Bitcoin. Bitcoin fell, especially March 2020. Bitcoin fell from 9,200 to 3,800 US dollars. That was a massive dip, but it did do a V-shaped recovery, and then it did go into the bull run of 2021. Did you buy the dip?
But, when you get something new like a pandemic you've never experienced, and you're seeing crap on TV, and so it does. To say that like, oh, I knew it was BS the whole time. No, I think over time trust eroded, and things became more apparent, and I think I woke up to that way earlier than a lot of other people, but that perspective was also the same perspective in financial markets, right? And so I realized at the time I was also buying stocks as well. So it wasn't just crypto. I completely scrapped the stocks probably in 2021. Yeah, I think I sold everything when I was in 2021 with the euphoria, and I wanted more crypto. And I was like, I was running out of fiat to buy it. So I was selling my stocks. So 2021, I exited all. But anyways, and that 2020 was looking at not only crypto, but also stocks. And I had saw that COVID and all of the things that wasn't as it appeared, right? The world wasn't going to end. Not everybody was going to die. And it wasn't, the world wasn't going to catch on fire and burn down is basically where it was. And so if society wasn't going to do that, then neither was the financial markets and neither was crypto. And so once I had realized that, well, the stock market's going to be fine. The U.S. economy will be fine. They'll bounce back. Crypto will be fine. And that's all I needed right there. So for myself, that was what got me to keep buying. And I didn't sway much from my bullish crypto thesis, right? And so there was that.
Okay, awesome. So then obviously we entered the 2021 bull run, which we had a double peak, first time ever. We went up, almost vertically up until April, where we hit I think it was 64,000 US dollars. And then the China FUD hit, and then we fell 50%, and we ranged there for a good couple of months. Bitcoins were taken off exchanges, and because of the supply shock, we went back up into the second peak, which was in November, the actual all-time high. The SEC then issued Wells notices. There was inflation concerns, all the rest of it. We slid down into a bear market. In 2021, it was the first time we had a double peak, a double top. What were you doing? How did you navigate that?
I more or less expected exactly what happened. I started really doing research. I don't think that history is a carbon copy. And you start identifying trades and markets when majority of the population thinks something is going to happen, majority of the time it doesn't. On a macro sense, a lot of times it does, but on the shorter sense, a lot of times it doesn't. And so if majority of the population says, hey, the S&P 500 will return 5 to 6% returns annualized basis over the next 20 years, hard to argue with that. On a macro sense, it's probably going to come true. Could it be invalidated? Sure, but percentages say that's probably going to happen. On the short-term basis, though, S&P 500, whatever market trends, if someone says, hey, we're expecting the Fed to do this, markets are going to tank or rally, whatever it is, and everyone shares the same ideology, more times than not, it does the opposite. And so for me, when I look at, what happened with the cycle, I realized on the macro sense, Bitcoin was going to go up and to the right. And I understood now at this point through a massive amount of research, because at this point I was educating myself. Before, I was just the trader kind of going through my own emotions. Made money, lost money, kicked myself in the butt in hindsight. So now I'm like, all right, well, I was inexperienced. I didn't lost a lot of money, missed out on an opportunity. Let me get ahead of this time. So I did my research, and I'm deep into the charts in the past and the macro data and things of that nature. So I had already expected, on a macro sense, up and to the right. You cut supply, there's more buyers, price can accumulate. But what I also heard was that, hey, we're going to have a peak here. Things are going to go, parabolic, and then it's going to crash. And so for me, I was just like, that can't happen. It just can't. It will not happen. When everyone says this will be the top, everyone's going to sell earlier. So, I mean, even if theoretically it does kind of happen, it's going to be front run by people expecting it to happen. And so if I tell you today, Bitcoin's price will be $1 million, and in 6 months, it'll be $100,000. Over the next 3 months, everybody's going to sell, especially when there's a little bit of a dip. And so that $100,000 Bitcoin that I just said is going to happen will come sooner because everyone is expecting it to happen at that point in time. So they're going to exit early. So now all of a sudden, instead of having this $100,000 Bitcoin in 6 months, you have the $100,000 Bitcoin in 2 months. And so we saw at the time in 2021 was that the top had came earlier. And then it crashed, and people thought that the bear market also came earlier. And it held up pretty decent support. I think it dropped down to about 40,000 at the time from 60, so somewhere in there. And then, put in another new all-time high. And I remember having that conversation multiple times. I was like, I think we're going to double top this time around. Made a lot of sense. Made a lot of sense to me at the time. And also, I did expect to crash, but I didn't understand how leveraged the markets were from the exchange and the liquidity providers and the interest, all the exchange, Celsius's and all, and the BlockFis and all these companies that were offering yield bearing products, and how much leverage they had. And the fact that they were borrowing money and lending money out to other people, even responsible companies, barely made it by. I didn't understand how everything worked on the back end, right? As far as custodial agents and institutions. So that I didn't quite get. I understand the flows of the market. So the come up, the pullback, the second top, that made sense to me. What I didn't account for was how deep that bear market was going to be, how big of a sell-off it was, how irresponsible or misguided a lot of the custodial agents were. And so that was a major reset there.
So let's talk about that. So let's talk about 2022 now. So we had the double top in 2021, and then we slid down into a bear market. There was a lot of black swan events. There was Celsius, 3 Hours Capital, Voyager, FTX, Luna, and many more. At this time, because it was your second bear market, were you aware of the difference between a bull market and a bear market? How did you position yourself, and what was your experience like?
Well, I knew for sure we were in a bear market. It was just more about how I was more caught off guard by how much it collapsed. Because things also, you got to think from a perspective of a crypto perspective, an early investor, the retail that we saw was very speculative. It was in 2017, 2018. It was very taboo to be in crypto. People thought it was like this drug money laundering thing. And, that people still said that, even in 2021, but it definitely wasn't to the rate it was. People were like, don't you buy heroin with that? And so it came from, it had a big shift. And then there was a lot of headlines with banks, and there was a lot of this talk of like, hey, look, this is a better money. This is a better way of moving value. Companies and institutions are going to use it. And there was no shortage of headlines of big companies that were using crypto and using blockchain to have more efficient business practices, especially in the area of finance. And so that wasn't something I saw in 2017. So I just looked at it from a value proposition. I'm like, well, you know what? The bear market isn't going to hit as hard because here's tangible value. There's real use case of utility that companies can use. However, in 2017, that wasn't the case. And so that bear market that we got was just simply off of speculation, people trying to make money. And now, lo and behold, 2021, you got Tesla buying, you got all these different companies talking about blockchain. And I was like, it's not going to. So for me, that I was caught off guard by how big the dip was. But I did understand it was a bear market. I also knew that we were going to come out of a bear market. And so with the Sin City Crypto channel, we launched in October of 2021. And we didn't really start filming. We moved into our studio in October 2021. We didn't launch kind of our official we didn't have our official launch until December of 2021. And then we didn't really get any viewers until January. And so we legitimately launched at the top of the market, literally at the very tippy top. And I knew it was a cycle in the same way that I knew in 2017, 2018, this was a cycle, and 2018 was a bear market. And I knew that was going to bounce back. You got to think, if there's ever a time to cut the cord on a business idea, if you don't have conviction, it's pretty much at the 2022 mark, right? I mean, honestly, like, hey, we got this business. We just launched it. Bitcoin's at 17,000. We don't have any viewers. Nobody's watching us. We've been at this for like 2 months. We're not gaining anything. All the channels are bleeding off. Content creators are shutting down. They're not even putting out content. And so the validation that the bear market was going to be just that, a bear market that'll eventually flip into a bull market, was the business that we have now. And so we proceeded to run Sin City Crypto from 2022 to now, Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, obviously, every day, 11 a.m., live show, unless it's Thanksgiving or Christmas. We had, since the top of the market through the entire bear market, we didn't miss any episodes. And that was, if that doesn't explain the conviction, then that was it. And so, and then all the while, you got to think, we bring in zero revenue, zero. And then the overhead is, $5,000 to $9,000 a month to run the place. And so, it's a hard conversation to have to a family member to be like, hey, I'm spending, my mortgage is $1,200, but my business that has no viewers is $3,000 for me. And you do that 2022 to 2023 to 2024. And so it's a big punch in the gut, but when you know what is on the other end, it's worth it, right? It's okay. It's fine, but you gotta take some risk and believe, right?
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about you and David, because David's your co-host. How did that come about? How did you and David come about?
So once again, we were in the same restaurant. We were the two crypto guys. I was, and we were in a group chat. So just text message, group chat, nothing out of the ordinary here. And in the group chat is probably like 12 other people, but we're the ones that shoot back information in the group chat. So people are like, hey, what to buy, whatever, what's this Doge thing? And that's our roles, right? And we kind of talk amongst each other like, hey, what are you buying? What are you selling? And one day I'm sitting now I have this setup here, right? This microphone, and you can see this is my setup here. I got monitors and gaming computers. And anyways, my thing here is that at the time I'm also an avid video game gamer, right? I'm a big gamer. So I am streaming video games. And so for me, I am, and I'm actually pretty good. There's a couple games I ranked top 100. Anyways, I spent a lot of my downtime. And then during the COVID thing, I was really like getting into it because they wouldn't let me leave the house. So I'm over here playing a lot of video games, competing, tournaments. I actually had won a couple of tournaments. Anyways, I'm streaming a lot of this, right? And so in doing so, I'm like building out my little home little setup here, my home studio. And all the while I'm watching YouTube videos on crypto, and I'm the crypto guy, obviously at work. And so is David. And I'm sitting on the couch and I'm like looking at this channel, this crypto channel. They're big channel. I don't want to put them on blast, but you probably have seen them. But the big channel as far as subscribers, but they had some quality effort, but the thing that got me was that they had this window in the background, and in the window, instead of like putting up a shade or pointing the camera away from the window, it was like bright and the sun was like pouring through. And instead of trying to like fix that situation, they just stapled a blanket over the window hole. And so you had this ugly blanket over a wall window hole, and then there was light shining through the edges, and it just caught my attention. And I'm looking there, and at my time, I was had my ex there, and she's sitting on the couch, and I'm like, you see this? I'm like, look at this window. I'm like, they couldn't even put up some blinds, they couldn't buy some curtains, they couldn't point the camera. I'm like, this is atrocious. Like, I'm giving you my attention and my time to watch this, and you can't even take the attention or time to like do something about that. Like, it's painfully visually scratching my eyeballs. And I'm sitting there like, and I'm like, I could do such a better job of this. I could. And then she looks at me and she says, well, why don't you? And I'm like a hyper obsessive compulsive. And like, I decided to do a little project in my backyard. Next thing you know, I got an excavator back there, and I look at her and I'm like, you want me to make, I was like, I can make my own channel. I was like, but be careful. You know what that means? And then she's all like, she sighs. She's like, I do know what that means. Like, you'll go way overboard and way too far. And next thing you know, you're super deep into some company. And I was like, yeah. She was like, oh, you should do it though. She's like, it seems like something that you'd be good at. And so I was like, all right, be careful what you ask for. So I pick up the phone literally as soon as I said that, and I called David. I was like, hey, David, you want to start a YouTube channel? And he's like, you could tell that he's like at a soccer game or at a restaurant or something. He's like, huh? It's just like, yeah, you want to start a YouTube channel? Like, look, let's do crypto, man. I was like, I know how to do the setup. I got a whole little at-home live streaming thing. I was like, look, I'll figure out all the tech stuff. Just show up. Come to my house, just show up. We'll record something. We'll figure it out. You want to do it? Like, you know what? There's a lot of money in this space. And then he's like, okay. And that's literally how it started. And then we ended up, actually, our first episode was right here by this piano. Our first episode, which that was such a good, in hindsight, like if you go back and watch the video, if you go to Sin City Crypto, go to our very first upload, you'll see that little spot there. It's a very outdated video, but me and David up here, and we were here for maybe a month, and then we went straight to a studio. And so I think that was in September. and October we had already got a studio. And so it was we quickly realized that if we were going to do a 2-person show, upstairs in my loft here in my home was not really well suited for that. And so then we got a studio, big investment there. It was just me and David at first. We got another producer that kind of bought in. He was around with us for about 2 or 3 months, and then he left. And then we found Rocco, which is our other business partner and producer. And then Rocco's been with us for the most part since the beginning. I think he might have missed the first like 6 months or something, but so maybe 6 months into 2022. And so he's been with us ever since. And so, yeah, ever since then, we got a few more people that are on our team now. But it's been me, David, and Rocco through the bear market.
And tell me about that. Tell me about your family and the investments that you've had to make into Sin City Crypto.
Well, a lot of the money that went into the studio was off of crypto. And so we got the studio in October. And so October of 2021. And so I had a 1.7 figure portfolio, but that I had squandered that a few times over. But anyways, at the time I had a 6-figure portfolio. So I was cashing in large amounts of crypto, particularly Cardano, and I was selling that and then putting that into the studio. Also, I had just cashed out a bunch and set it aside, quit my job, and then just was at the studio. And the savings I had and the money I'd earned from crypto was going into the studio. Now, David didn't quit, but I did. But from the perspective of what our roles are in the company was I'm the technician. I'm the one that builds. And so I came from a restaurant industry, even though I know this little home setup thing, I had no idea what the hell I was doing in a professional studio environment. And so I'm here ordering camera after camera, microphone and mixer board and computer. And there's no instruction manual for this. There's nothing, right? And this is before ChatGPT is a thing. And so for me, it was just watch videos, order this gear. I think it'll work. Put it together. Okay, that's the right piece of equipment for a certain setup. That one's the right piece of equipment for another setup, but they don't work together. And so, okay, I got to return this one, buy something else. And so we got a graveyard of things that I attempted to put together on our studio in our garage. But from we launched the channel perspective, what did we do? It was I had to cash out crypto, put it into the building for the brick and mortar, survive off of the earnings that I had made, and build what I didn't know how to build and just wing it. I had also, at that time, I was married, and that started to unwind. So, just to kind of get on a little bit of a personal level, I have 2 kids. And my kids, I'd separated a while ago, and when I was younger, and as I mentioned, I was a chef. I just wasn't around a lot, and it's like 60-hour work weeks, and then on top of that, I was being irresponsible. I was going to the bar, I was drinking, and so my ex-wife she decided to move. She's Israeli, so she went to Israel, left kids, and there wasn't much I could do. I didn't have the money to lawyer up and try to fight that. And so the kids left. And so also a big part of my transition was like, hey, I had a family and my kids are gone. My ex-wife is gone. And I just don't really have much to show for it. And so I realized that, like, okay, if I don't have my kids around, which I do see my kids, I got a presence with them. I talked to them on the phone, talked to my daughter here right before I got on the phone with you. And, I spend holidays and summer vacations with the kids. So I try to be as included as I can. But the reality of it is that I'm not there. I'm not there raising them. I'm not the father figure as far as someone that has the kids in the neighborhood, right, or in the same city. So from my perspective is that, well, crap, if I'm not there to raise my kids, then I got to at least put something on my name, have something to be proud of, have at least if my kids look, think about me or talk about me or whatever it is, that they're going to be like, well, he wasn't around much for whatever reason it may be, maybe not his fault, not his mom's fault, but either way, dad's not around, but look what he built. He was out here building businesses, doing some badass stuff. He started this crypto empire. He started this, because what we're building at Sin City Crypto, the crypto is the product. It's the final, the final aim, the final product of our business. So we have Sin City Studios LLC. So we have this multimedia company with multiple sets, and we also rent out our studio, and so we have this media company that we're building. And so for me, I'm trying to build the biggest company, put the biggest footprint, and make the biggest splash in the world, and put the biggest clout on my name. And so that way, at least I have some kind of legacy or something that my kids can point to be like, wow, well, look what he built. And so there's that. And then at the same time, that was kind of my fuel for everything I do. And so I kind of stopped all the foolishness, and it's realistically just to make as much money and gain as much respect and build the biggest, most badass thing possible. And a lot of it comes off of massive risk and just I'm going to try as hard as possible. And so that's where I'm at. Right. And so now it's starting to pay off. Well, we're making money. No longer, I don't have to put $3,000 in anymore. That is gone. So the company is self-sufficient. We generate enough money to cover overhead. We still have yet to take $1 out of the company. We'll pay for a company dinner every once in a while, but we haven't paid ourselves $1, and everything that we make goes right back into it. And so we keep expanding in our content. But I will say from a family perspective, I'm in a unique position where I don't have much family. And so for me, my fuel is to at least prop up my legacy and my name. And that's kind of where the family ties into it, is just from like a proxy of observing and eventually I can pass down whatever I have, whether it's finances, portfolio, company. I could pass that on to the ones I love or help people out in time of need. And so that's kind of my thing. But hats off to David, because David David has a wife, 3 kids. And, his wife doesn't work, she's a stay-at-home mom. So he's juggling a lot of responsibilities, and he's done it, 100% with all of that. So big hats off to him. I've just, I'm at a different position. So me and David have very, very different roles. And so, he's the one that does the content and the decides what we're going to cover and when and the frequency and projects. And then I'm the one that's over here building the Sin City Studios brand and sets and capabilities. And so really excited to show y'all, like if you tune in about 3 months from now, we're going to be a lot further along on what you see, what we can pump out from where we're at now. So we're really excited about that.
Awesome. So how do you stay, because you do Monday to Friday, the shows, how do you stay up to date with crypto? Because it's very fast paced.
You know what? It's just a lot of different places. I try not now compared to before I started a channel. I used to get all of my information through YouTube. But the problem is that if you're an educator in YouTube, and you watch other YouTube videos, you'll start mimicking the other people. Then your voice isn't unique. So you get into this interesting situation where, for me, my content or my knowledge came from majority YouTube. But now I had to remove that as part of my reference. Otherwise, just natural human nature, you start to copy or mimic, or at least stylistically, compared to someone else. And so X really grew a lot. So a lot of information comes off of there. I do just a lot of just headline news, honestly. Here's the thing. You pick up a headline news article, and then from there, you just dig deeper, right? And so you don't need to go and look for some far right media publication and some weird chat forum and some weird Reddit thread. You don't need to do all that. Realistically, if you want to know what's going on, it's very simple. Let's just take the most recent event with Bybit. Okay, Bybit happens, right? I didn't watch a single video on YouTube. I don't know what anybody else is saying. But for me, I see the video, I see the press release from the CEO. Okay, cool. What does this mean? Now I just dig in deeper. Okay, Lazarus Group. Okay, they hacked. Okay, so what's more about Lazarus Group? Started researching them, started looking into it. I already have basic knowledge, but if I'm going to speak about it on Monday's show, I better know more about it, not just be like, well, I think they're in North Korea. I gotta come out well researched. So, you do research on them. And you're like, who is this CEO of Bybit? If I'm going to talk about him and talk about his interview, I need to know who he is. So I do research on him. And then, okay, what's up with the Ethereum? They said it was a front page, at surface level, the wallet didn't move, but they saw the transactions move on the blockchain. And they saw that the wallet address that was addressed with them had the funds move. But when they looked at the wallet, there was no activity. And so how does that happen? And it was a 3-factor authentication on that. How did that happen? Okay, are there exploits where you can move a wallet? So then I start researching about that. And so that is how I compose my research, is that I take the main headline article. What doesn't make sense to me that I don't know immediately right off the top, Ethereum was stolen. Okay, cool. I don't need to know about like what Ethereum is. So there's no need to research that. But every part underneath that, every layer that I don't understand, it's all out there. If you can't find it, then ask ChatGPT, right? You can figure it out. So that's how I approach my research, is just to take don't overcomplicate it. Like if you want to know about, and it's any subject really, unless you have zero idea what it is, like, it's just something that's completely novel idea, then usually just look at the headline article, whatever, or headline story or headline topic. Don't know what it is. Like me, I was like, what's this whole fluoride thing? Fluoride in water. I know what fluoride is. It's on your toothpaste, but okay, let me break that down. And so for me, I'm like, okay, then what do the cities mandate it? How did it get here? Why is it in my water? Like, am I drinking it? Does Las Vegas have it? And so it's all about research. And so I would encourage anyone to not try to go too far in one direction or some weird little, just take the information, the headline article, and then just take a look at each layer that you don't understand.
So you are based in Las Vegas, and this year in May, we are going to have the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas. What are your plans for that?
Oh, man. First of all, Vegas is home of the conventions, right? This is, if you've ever been to Vegas, you probably came as a tourist. Some of you came for conventions, but I would say it's almost like a split. 50-50 almost, like 50% of revenue comes from tourism, people here for leisure and entertainment. Other half is business. And so we have all those casinos that you see, all of them across the strip, they all have a convention room. Some of them have world-class convention rooms. Like you go to any city, they got conventions, right? Any city, you go to Miami, whatever, Austin, Texas, or Nashville, there's always like one big convention area and then a couple small ones. Our convention areas and even the moderate sized casinos are bigger than convention centers in most cities, 95% of cities. And we got 10, 20, 30 of them. And then when we get a big convention, they just buy out all of them. And so you got CES and Money 2020, two of the biggest conventions globally. And they pretty much take over the whole strip. And so even though it's one convention, it's spread across, like CES is genuinely spread across about 20 conventions. And so anyways, that is what Vegas does extremely well. We have the lodging and the hotels that can support this. So the fact that Bitcoin conference and crypto conferences haven't been here is a damn shame. And it's been very disappointing. And I've been pissed off about it. And the fact that I got to go travel outside of my convention headquarters to go to conventions everywhere else is asinine. So for me, first of all, I'm stupid excited to have it here. This is what we do well, and we're gonna blow the doors off of this thing. And a lot of it probably comes off of, I think the last convention was like 2018, 2017. I don't remember exactly when. I didn't go. I wasn't bullish enough on crypto at that time to go to the convention, but we kind of dropped the ball. I think from when I heard, the Las Vegas convention for Bitcoin conference didn't go over well, and nobody wanted to come back here. And so I think now, different era, times have changed. So now that it's coming here, I think it's gonna be very, very, very successful, and I think it's gonna keep coming back, or at least that's my hope. Now, with that said, we obviously, being in Las Vegas, are going to try to make this the biggest event possible. We were going to probably hold some mixers at our studio. We got a large space, so probably have a little meet and greets and get together, DJ. I think we got a couple things planned out. Maybe rent some space out if needed. We're expanding our filming capabilities, putting together some more sets. And so we're offering our studio as a place for creators to also film, because I'll tell you from firsthand experience, when there's a convention outside of your own hometown, which is pretty much everyone for the most part, unless you're lucky enough for it to land in your own city, like we are now, you pretty much go there. You go to a hotel. You try to get the best internet possible. More than likely, it's not good. And then you got all kinds of lighting equipment, and you're spending like hours setting this thing up, and then it looks like crap anyways. The lighting's always terrible, and you're in some little studio set up, and you're a hotel room / studio. It just is. It's always a bad look. And so it's always just how refreshing would it be to just pull up and walk into a studio and have everything done for you, and you just get off a plane and you're like, okay, let's go do our show. You walk down to a studio. So we're trying to make Vegas. We're trying to leave a lasting impression on this crypto convention, because a lot of these content creators are also very influential people, and so if 10 different content creators come out of this convention and say like, wow, Vegas was such a hit, a lot of that will come off of their experience. And a lot of their experience will come from creating content. And if we can make it easier for these creators to create their content, then at that point, maybe they'll feel more inclined to come back, and maybe the convention will come back. We got some big names using our studios, big names, biggest names in crypto. We're in talks, and we're already kind of setting up our space for them to use. We're not charging them anything. We don't want any money. We just want you to use our studio, have no issues with creating content, make it easy. And I want you to come away and be like, we got to do this thing again in Vegas. Like, that was the place to be. That's what we're trying to get to. And so whatever I can do, we published the magazine, or Crypto Almanac, free of charge. We put the back page is an ad to the Bitcoin conference, literally the back cover. And we didn't get paid for it. We didn't want to get paid for it. We just want people to come. We want to be as successful as possible. And so we want to just do everything possible to have this thing come back year after year after year, because it's a damn disappointment that it's taken this long for it to even come back here.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Rob, for coming on and sharing your crypto story with us, and sharing a bit about what you're doing as well. It's lovely hearing all of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.